The massive crystalline chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with alien chatter as representatives from across the galaxy gathered for their monthly session. Towering above the assembly floor, Ambassador Zexstar of the Catherian Empire adjusted his ceremonial robes and prepared to address the council with what he considered devastating news. Fellow council members, his voice boomed through the translation matrix, reaching every species in their native tongue. Today we discuss the latest intelligence reports from the primitive world designated as Earth 847, commonly known as Terra by its inhabitants. A ripple of amused clicks, growls, and harmonic tones swept through the chamber. Earth had become something of a running joke among the advanced civilizations. The humans were still centuries behind most council races in technology, barely having achieved faster-than-light travel in the past 50 years. Zexstar's four eyes glowed with malicious satisfaction as he activated the holographic display. Images of human soldiers flickered to life above the assembly, showing their primitive projectile weapons and basic armor. As you can see, he continued, his voice dripping with condescension, these humans still rely on what they call kinetic weapons, crude devices that propel small metal slugs using chemical explosives. Their most advanced infantry weapon, which they proudly call a rifle, operates on principles we abandoned thousands of years ago. The Viridian representative, a tall insectoid being with multifaceted eyes, chittered in amusement. Surely you jest, Ambassador Zexstar. No spacefaring civilization still uses such barbaric weaponry. I assure you, the intelligence is accurate, Zexstar replied, savoring every word. While we have perfected plasma cannons, quantum disruptors, and molecular destabilizers, humans continue to believe that firing small pieces of metal at high velocity constitutes effective warfare. Admiral Thys of the Nebula Consortium, her blue-scaled face twisted in amusement, leaned forward in her hovering chair. These weapons they call rifles. What is their effective range? Surely no more than a few hundred meters. Zexstar's mandibles clicked in what his species considered laughter. Their most skilled operators claim ranges of up to 1,000 meters, though this is likely exaggerated. Compare this to our standard plasma rifles with effective ranges exceeding 10,000 meters, and you begin to understand the technological gap we're dealing with. The chamber erupted in various forms of alien laughter. The crystalline shardlings chimed like broken bells, while the gaseous Vorthan representatives swirled in patterns that indicated extreme mirth. Even the usually stoic Titanoid delegation allowed their rocky features to crack in what passed for smiles. But surely, interjected Counselor Vrax, a reptilian being whose species had mastered interstellar warfare long before humans discovered fire, their weapons must possess some redeeming qualities? Perhaps they excel in close-quarters combat? Zexstar's holographic display shifted to show human soldiers in various combat scenarios. Their rifles require the operator to physically aim the weapon, account for factors like wind and gravity, and manually load projectiles. The process is so primitive that their soldiers must train for years to achieve even basic competency. Meanwhile, our weapons auto-target, self-adjust for environmental factors, and possess ammunition that phases through most forms of armor. The mockery intensified. Delegate Quarth of the Silicon hegemony pulsed with colors that indicated supreme amusement. Do they at least have energy shielding to compensate for their inferior weaponry? They wear pieces of woven fabric and crude metal plates, Zexstar replied, barely containing his glee. They call it body armor, though it provides protection only against their own primitive weapons. A single shot from any of our standard-issue weapons would vaporize both the armor and the human wearing it. General Krex of the Warcast slammed his massive fist on his delegation's platform, causing the entire structure to vibrate. Then why do we continue to monitor this backwater world? Surely they pose no threat to our expansion plans? Zexstar's expression grew more serious, though traces of amusement still flickered in his eyes. Intelligence suggests they may soon attempt to expand beyond their immediate solar system. While their technology is laughably primitive, their numbers are substantial. Current estimates place their population at over 8 billion individuals. A murmur of concern rippled through the assembly. While 8 billion was not an extraordinary number for a spacefaring civilization, it was significant for such a technologically backward species. However, Zexthar continued, raising his voice to regain attention. Their expansion capabilities remain severely limited. Their fastest vessels require months to traverse distances we cover in hours. Their weapons cannot penetrate modern shielding. Their armor cannot withstand modern weapons. Simply put, they are no more threatening than the primitive beings we encounter on newly discovered worlds. The ethereal collective's representative, a being of pure energy contained within a shimmering field, pulsed with curiosity. What of their military doctrine? Do they at least show innovation in tactical thinking? The holographic display shifted again, showing human military formations and battle strategies. They still organize their forces into what they call squads and platoons, small groups that operate with minimal technological support. Their tactics rely heavily on cover and concealment rather than superior firepower or defensive systems. Most amusing of all, they place enormous emphasis on individual marksmanship, the ability of a single soldier to accurately fire their primitive rifle. This statement triggered the loudest wave of laughter yet. The concept of individual accuracy being important in modern warfare was so outdated that many species had to access their historical databases to remember when such skills had last been relevant. Counselor Yathara of the Mystic Orders raised a tentacled appendage. You speak of individual marksmanship as though it were significant. Surely in an age of guided projectiles and homing weapons, such skills are merely ceremonial? Precisely my point, Zexthar replied triumphantly. Humans have entire military specializations dedicated to what they call sniping, the practice of using a rifle to eliminate targets at long range. They speak of it with the same reverence we might reserve for mastery of quantum mechanics or stellar engineering. The absurdity of the concept sent fresh waves of amusement through the assembly. The idea that any advanced civilization would dedicate significant resources to training individuals to manually aim primitive projectile weapons seemed beyond comprehension. I have viewed recordings of their training exercises, Zexthar continued, his voice taking on a tone of mock respect. Their most elite snipers spend decades perfecting their craft. They study wind patterns, atmospheric pressure, target movement, and countless other variables that our targeting computers calculate in nanoseconds. They consider a successful shot at 800 meters to be a remarkable achievement worthy of celebration. Admiral Thiss shook her scaled head in disbelief. 800 meters. My personal sidearm has a maximum effective range of 12,000 meters and requires no skill beyond pointing it in the general direction of the target. The comparison drew renewed laughter from the assembly. The gap between human and galactic technology seemed so vast as to be insurmountable. Zexthar activated a final series of images showing human snipers in various environments. These individuals, whom humans regard as their most dangerous warriors, spend hours in single positions waiting for targets. They must account for planetary rotation, atmospheric density, and even the curvature of their world when making long-range shots. The complexity they've created around such a simple task is both admirable in its dedication and pitiful in its necessity. Surely, interrupted Delegate Morphex of the Shapeshifter Collective, they must realize the futility of such weapons against modern technology? Have they made no attempts to acquire more advanced armaments? Intelligence suggests they have observed our technology during limited contact scenarios, Zexthar admitted. However, their understanding remains rudimentary. They continue to believe that improvements to their existing weapons represent meaningful progress. Their latest advances include rifles that fire projectiles slightly faster or with marginally improved accuracy. The condescension in his voice was unmistakable. They have yet to comprehend that the fundamental concept of their weapons is obsolete. It would be like us trying to improve stone tools when we have matter manipulators. General Krex leaned back in his massive chair, his interest clearly waning. Then we need not concern ourselves with human expansion for several more centuries at minimum. By the time they develop weapons that could theoretically threaten our outer colonies, we will have advanced beyond their comprehension. Agreed, Zexthar said with finality. The humans and their rifles represent no strategic concern. They are a curiosity at best, a historical footnote that reminds us how far civilization has progressed. As the council prepared to move to other matters, none of the assembled delegates noticed the small surveillance device that had been carefully placed during the previous cycle's maintenance. Hidden among the countless technological marvels that surrounded them, the simple human construct continued its mission of recording everything it observed. The device had been planted by Captain Sarah Chen of Earth's newly formed Reconnaissance Division, whose specialty in long-range infiltration had made the impossible mission feasible. As the aliens mocked humanity's primitive rifles and laughed at their reliance on individual marksmanship, they remained unaware that they were being watched by the very type of soldier they found so amusing. 3 sectors away, aboard the stealth reconnaissance vessel Silent Thunder, Chen's data was being transmitted in real time to Earth Command. The admirals and generals receiving the intelligence maintained stoic expressions as they listened to the aliens' dismissive comments, but their minds were already working through the tactical implications. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations had just revealed their greatest weakness. They had forgotten how to fight without technology. Their reliance on automated systems, guided weapons, and energy shields had made them soft. They had never encountered an enemy that could operate effectively with primitive tools and individual skill. As the Galactic Council moved on to discuss trade routes and territorial disputes, Earth's military leadership began planning humanity's response. They had been mocked for their rifles and ridiculed for their reliance on marksmanship. The aliens considered human weapons laughably outdated and human tactics pitifully primitive. They were about to learn why that assessment was dangerously wrong. The silent war for humanity's survival was about to begin, and it would be fought not with advanced technology, but with the very skills the galaxy had dismissed as obsolete. In the depths of space, human snipers were already taking their positions, their primitive rifles loaded and ready. The aliens had made their first and most critical mistake. They had underestimated the humans. 6 months after the Galactic Council meeting, Admiral Thys stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Eternal Dominion, as her fleet approached the outer boundaries of human space. Her mission was simple: establish a forward operating base in the system humans called Alpha Centauri, and demonstrate galactic superiority to discourage any thoughts of human expansion. The operation was considered so routine that it had been assigned to a relatively small force of 50 vessels. After all, what could primitive humans with their chemical-propelled projectiles possibly do against energy shields and plasma cannons? "Admiral," her tactical officer reported, his scaled features betraying mild surprise, "we're detecting unusual readings from the asteroid belt. The signatures don't match standard human technology." This barely looked up from her tactical display. "Probably mining equipment or primitive sensor stations. Proceed with the mission parameters. Establish the base on the 3rd planet and broadcast the standard annexation message to Earth." What Admiral Thys didn't know was that those unusual readings were coming from carefully concealed human observation posts that had been established throughout the system. Each post was staffed by 2-person teams, a spotter and a sniper. Their weapons were indeed primitive by galactic standards, but they had been modified with the best technology humanity could provide. Staff Sergeant Marcus Rodriguez checked his rifle one final time as he watched the alien fleet approach. His weapon was a specially modified Earth-made rifle that fired depleted uranium rounds at velocities approaching 5% of light speed. By galactic standards, it was still primitive. By any reasonable measure of lethality, it was devastating. "Distance to the lead vessel?" he asked his spotter, Corporal Jenny Walsh. 15,000 meters in closing," Walsh replied, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were about to attempt. "Wind is negligible in vacuum. No atmospheric interference. Your scope is calibrated for their estimated hull composition." Rodriguez smiled grimly. The aliens had made a critical error in their intelligence gathering. They had observed human weapons testing under Earth conditions, with Earth atmosphere and Earth gravity. They had no idea how those same weapons performed in the vacuum of space, where there was no air resistance to slow projectiles and no gravity to pull them off course. "I have a clean shot on their bridge section," Rodriguez reported, confirming target designation Alpha 1. Through his scope, he could see the alien admiral standing confidently on her bridge, probably discussing how primitive and helpless the humans were. She had no idea that a human sniper was already drawing a bead on her position from a distance, that her species considered impossible for manual targeting. The modifications to Rodriguez's rifle included a quantum targeting computer that could calculate precise trajectory adjustments for extreme-range shots, but the actual firing decision remained entirely human. The computer provided data. The sniper provided judgment, timing, and skill. Target acquired, Rodriguez whispered, taking the shot. The rifle's recoil was absorbed by advanced shock dampeners, but the projectile launched from the barrel carried devastating kinetic energy. At 5% of light speed, the depleted uranium round crossed the 15,000-meter gap in less than 2 seconds. Admiral Thiss was examining a tactical display when the universe changed around her. One moment she was standing on the bridge of the most advanced warship her species had ever built, protected by energy shields that could deflect asteroid impacts. The next moment, a small piece of human-forged metal punched through those shields as if they didn't exist. The projectile passed through 3 deck levels, the Admiral's torso, and 2 more deck levels before finally coming to rest in the ship's secondary power core. The energy shields that the aliens relied on for protection were designed to deflect energy weapons and large objects moving at conventional speeds. They had never been tested against small, dense projectiles moving at near relativistic velocities. The death of their admiral might have been shocking enough, but it was only the beginning. Across the asteroid belt, human sniper teams were taking similar shots at every vessel in the alien fleet. The aliens' own technology worked against them, as their ship's shields and sensors were optimized for detecting energy signatures and large objects, making the small human observation posts virtually invisible. Captain Vexstar of the cruiser Nebula's Edge watched in horror as his admiral's flagship suddenly lurched to one side, massive explosions blossoming along its hull. What happened? Report. Before his tactical officer could respond, their own ship shuddered under an impact that should have been impossible. A human sniper named Sergeant Lisa Park had just put a depleted uranium round through their main reactor housing from 18,000 meters away. Hull breach in Section 7, his engineer reported in panic. The shields didn't stop it. How did the shields not stop it? Vextar's confusion was understandable. His species had fought wars for millennia using energy weapons and guided projectiles. The concept of a manually aimed kinetic weapon bypassing advanced defensive systems was outside his experience. It was like being killed by a stone thrown by a primitive hunter while wearing the most advanced armor in the galaxy. The human snipers had spent months studying captured alien technology and developing countermeasures. They had learned that alien shields were frequency-based, designed to deflect or absorb energy attacks. Solid projectiles moving at extreme velocities created an entirely different type of impact that the shield systems couldn't properly address. Even more critically, the aliens had made their ships efficient and powerful by centralizing critical systems. Their reactors, command centers, and weapons arrays were concentrated in specific areas to maximize space and energy efficiency. This made them incredibly effective in conventional warfare but vulnerable to precision strikes that could disable entire vessels with single shots. Sergeant Rodriguez was already lining up his second shot as the alien flagship began to list. His target was the lead escort vessel, whose captain was frantically trying to understand what was happening to his fleet. Second target acquired, Rodriguez reported calmly. Distance 16,000 meters. Target appears to be their tactical coordination ship based on the antenna array. Confirmed, Walsh replied, monitoring the alien communications traffic through their translation equipment. They're trying to organize a response, but they don't understand what's hitting them. The second shot was even more devastating than the first. The depleted uranium round penetrated the alien vessel's communication array before continuing into their primary computer core. Without their automated systems, the ship's crew found themselves trying to operate advanced technology manually, something they hadn't trained for in generations. Across the fleet, similar scenarios were playing out. Human snipers were systematically disabling alien vessels with precision shots that the aliens couldn't defend against, couldn't predict, and couldn't understand. The aliens' reliance on technology had made them formidable opponents against other technological civilizations, but helpless against humans, who combined primitive weapons with superior training and tactical innovation. Commander Zixta of the destroyer Void Piercer managed to get his weapons systems online and began firing plasma bolts in the general direction where he thought the attacks were coming from. His energy weapons lit up the asteroid belt like a deadly fireworks display, but they struck nothing but empty rock. The human observation posts were too small and too well concealed to be detected by weapons designed to engage large targets. Meanwhile, Sergeant David Kim was carefully adjusting his aim to target the alien destroyer's weapon systems directly. Distance 14,000 meters, his spotter reported. Target is actively firing, but their shots are off by at least 1,000 meters. The aliens were using area of effect weapons against point targets they couldn't see. It was like trying to kill a mosquito with a sledgehammer while blindfolded. His shot removed the alien destroyer's primary weapons array in a cascade of secondary explosions. Without their main guns, the vessel was effectively neutered, forced to rely on point defense systems designed for intercepting missiles, not engaging hidden snipers. The alien fleet's situation deteriorated rapidly as more ships fell victim to the humans' impossible marksmanship. The aliens had energy shields, advanced armor, and weapons that could destroy planets. But none of their advantages mattered when small, precisely placed projectiles could punch through their defenses and disable critical systems. What made the situation even more desperate for the aliens was their inability to adapt. Their ships were designed to be operated by automated systems and trained crews working together. When the snipers disabled key systems, the aliens found themselves unable to compensate because they had never learned to fight without their technology. Captain Rendar of the assault cruiser Star Render tried a different approach, ordering his ship to ram the nearest asteroid in an attempt to flush out the human snipers. The plan failed catastrophically when Sergeant Maria Santos put a round through his navigation computer just as the ship began its attack run. Instead of a controlled ramming attack, the Star Render crashed into the asteroid at full speed, its crew unable to correct course without their automated systems. The resulting explosion lit up the asteroid belt and provided an excellent distraction for the human teams to relocate to secondary positions. By the end of the engagement, 47 of the 50 alien vessels had been disabled or destroyed. The remaining 3 ships retreated in disorder, their crews traumatized by an enemy they couldn't see, couldn't hit, and couldn't understand. The aliens had come to demonstrate their superiority over primitive humans. Instead, they had been systematically destroyed by weapons they considered obsolete and tactics they thought were ancient history. As the surviving alien ships limped back toward their space, they carried with them news that would shake the foundation of galactic civilization. The humans, with their primitive rifles and individual marksmanship, had just proven that technological superiority meant nothing against superior training, tactics, and skill. The mockery would stop now. The real war was about to begin. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in chaos. Representatives from dozens of species shouted, clicked, buzzed, and harmonized their outrage as news of the Alpha Centauri disaster spread throughout civilized space. Ambassador Zexthar, who had so confidently mocked human weapons 6 months earlier, stood before the assembly looking significantly less assured. "How is this possible?" demanded General Krex, his massive frame trembling with rage. 50 ships! 50 of our most advanced vessels defeated by primitives with metal-throwing weapons. The ethereal collective's representative pulsed with anxious energy. The survivors' reports make no sense. They claim humans were shooting at them from impossible distances with weapons that shouldn't have been able to penetrate modern shielding. Zexthar activated the holographic display, showing the fragmentary data recovered from the surviving ships. According to our analysis, human projectiles were traveling at approximately 5% of light speed. This should be impossible with their chemical-based propulsion systems. Should be impossible? Admiral Thiss's replacement, Commander Vexana, hissed from her delegation platform. "This is dead because of your intelligence failures. Your report said human weapons were harmless." The accusation sent ripples of discord through the assembly. The beings who had laughed at human rifles 6 months ago were now facing the uncomfortable reality that those same rifles had just inflicted the worst military defeat in galactic history. Counselor Vrax's reptilian features showed deep concern. If humans can accelerate projectiles to near-relativistic speeds, they may be more technologically advanced than we believed. No, Zexstar replied, his voice strained. Our technical analysis confirms their weapons remain fundamentally primitive. They've simply modified them with improved propulsion systems. The underlying concept is still the same: crude kinetic weaponry we dismissed. Crude weaponry that killed Admiral Thiss and 47 ship crews, General Krex growled. Perhaps our definition of crude requires revision. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. For millennia, galactic civilization had evolved beyond kinetic weapons, considering them relics of a barbaric past. Energy shields, plasma cannons, and quantum disruptors represented the pinnacle of military technology. The idea that someone could be killed by a piece of metal thrown very fast seemed absurd, until it happened. Delegate Korth of the Silicon Hegemony pulsed with confused colors. How were our shields ineffective? They can deflect asteroid impacts and absorb gigawatts of energy. Quote, until the change of powerful biopathic effects can be assassinated. Asteroid doesn't make this. The Bobby answers will set us up to descending computers between the issues when any more predictable stories are available. A tiny piece of metal moving at 5% of light speed creates a completely different type of impact profile. Then, we modify our shields, Commander Vexana declared. Adapt them to stop kinetic weapons. Already attempted, came the reply from Dr. Kentalar, the Council's chief military scientist. The power requirements to stop high-velocity projectiles would drain our ship's reactors within minutes. We would be forced to choose between shields and engines, or shields and weapons. The strategic implications were staggering. Galactic military doctrine was built around energy shields that allowed ships to engage in prolonged battles while maintaining mobility and firepower. If those shields became ineffective against human weapons, everything would have to change. What of our numerical superiority? Asked Counselor Yathara. Surely we can overwhelm them with sheer numbers. Zexstar's expression grew even grimmer. Our intelligence suggests humans have approximately 1 billion soldiers trained in their sniper specialization, each capable of the long-range precision strikes that destroyed our fleet. The number hit the assembly like a physical blow. 1 billion snipers represented more precision marksmen than most galactic civilizations had total military personnel. Impossible, breathed Admiral Drexnar of the War Fleet. No civilization maintains that many specialists. Human society is different from ours, Zexstar admitted. They treat marksmanship as a recreational activity. Millions of their civilians practice with rifles for entertainment. Their military simply recruits from this existing pool of trained shooters. The concept was alien to the assembled delegates. In galactic civilization, weapons training was restricted to military personnel using advanced automated systems. The idea that civilians would spend their leisure time practicing with weapons was both fascinating and terrifying. Then we strike at their homeworld directly, General Krex declared. End this threat before it spreads. With what? Commander Vexana challenged. Our shields are useless against their weapons. Our automated targeting systems can't detect their hidden positions. Our energy weapons are designed for large targets, not individual soldiers. The truth was becoming clear to everyone in the chamber. Galactic military technology had evolved to fight galactic enemies. It was supremely effective against other advanced civilizations, but completely inadequate against humans who fought like an earlier epoch. Kenthalala projected a new holographic display showing human military doctrine. Analysis of captured human tactical manuals reveals they've maintained strategic concepts we abandoned centuries ago. Small unit tactics, individual initiative, manual weapon operation, environmental adaptation. They're fighting a completely different type of war than we're prepared for. How different could it be? Demanded Delegate Morphex. War is war. Technology provides advantage. Human soldiers operate independently, Doctor. Kent Haller explained. They can function effectively without support systems, automated assistance, or central coordination. Our soldiers rely on technology to aim their weapons. calculate tactics, and even make basic decisions. Remove that technology, and they become helpless. The implications were devastating. Galactic soldiers were highly trained to operate advanced systems, but had never learned the fundamental skills that humans considered basic military requirements. "Show them," Zexstar said quietly. The holographic display changed to show footage from human training exercises. The assembled delegates watched in amazement as human soldiers operated in conditions that would incapacitate galactic troops. No energy shields, no automated systems, no technological support of any kind. "They train without technology," Dr. Kenthalar narrated. "Their soldiers learn to fight in environments where their equipment might fail or be unavailable. They practice manual marksmanship, individual tactics, and survival skills that we consider primitive." General Krex leaned forward, his expression troubled. "You're saying they're more adaptable than our forces?" "I'm saying they're trained for a completely different type of warfare," the scientist replied. "One that makes their primitive weapons devastatingly effective." The chamber erupted in renewed discussion as delegates grappled with the reality of their situation. The humans weren't just technologically different, they were strategically and tactically different. In ways that neutralized galactic advantages, Commander Vexana stood slowly, her scaled features reflecting deep thought. "If we cannot defeat them militarily, what options remain?" "Negotiation," suggested Counselor Vrox. "Perhaps we can reach an accommodation." "Accommodation?" General Krex's voice dripped with outrage. "They destroyed our fleet. They humiliated our military. They defended their territory," corrected the ethereal collective's representative. "According to galactic law, they had the right to resist annexation. The legal point was uncomfortably valid. The Galactic Council had authorized the Alpha Centauri operation as a routine expansion into supposedly undefended space. The humans' successful defense was technically legitimate under interstellar law. "We could offer them membership in the Galactic Council," Counselor Ithara suggested tentatively. "Recognition as a spacefaring civilization with territorial rights." "Membership?" Zexstar's voice cracked with disbelief. "We were mocking their primitive weapons 6 months ago. 6 months ago, those primitive weapons hadn't killed Admiral Thys," Commander Vexana pointed out coldly. As the debate continued, none of the delegates noticed the small reconnaissance device that had been observing the proceedings. Captain Sarah Chen's latest intelligence-gathering mission was proving even more valuable than her previous work. Aboard the stealth ship Silent Thunder, Chen smiled as she monitored the aliens' discussion. Her superiors at Earth Command would be very interested to learn that the galaxy's most advanced civilizations were now debating whether to offer humanity membership in their exclusive club. The same humans they had dismissed as primitive, the same weapons they had mocked as obsolete, the same tactics they had considered laughable. "Captain," her communications officer reported, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command." Chen accepted the encrypted message and read its contents with growing satisfaction. Earth's response to the aliens' attitude had been swift and decisive. Human sniper teams were already being deployed throughout the galaxy, taking positions near every major alien installation. The message was simple but comprehensive. If they want to mock our rifles again, we're ready to show them what human marksmanship can really accomplish. In the Galactic Council chamber, the debate raged on as delegates struggled to comprehend how completely their assumptions about warfare had been shattered. They had entered the conflict believing that technological superiority guaranteed victory. They were learning, too late, that the universe still had room for soldiers who could fight without relying on machines. The humans, with their primitive rifles and individual skills, had just proven that sometimes the oldest methods were still the most effective. The galaxy would never again make the mistake of underestimating human determination, human ingenuity, or the devastating effectiveness of a skilled sniper with a rifle. The war was over before most of the galaxy realized it had begun. Humanity had won not through superior technology, but through superior warriors using weapons their enemies had forgotten how to fight against. The primitive humans with their obsolete rifles had just inherited the stars.